Now we are going to talk about the types of the nervous system by anatomy. By the structure, there are two different types: central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. There's quite basic things. You must have read this before in your earlier classes. So I will quickly go through it and we will try to discuss what is more important in this lecture. Right, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Here in this diagram you see this greenish part, the brain and the spinal cord is the central nervous system, whereas the nerves and other extensions of the nerves that are extending from the spinal cord, they form the peripheral nervous system. So they take the main message from the central nervous system to the distant parts of the animal's body. The peripheral nervous system extends from the central nervous system. It consists of sensory receptors, nerves, ganglia, and plexus. So these are four different types of the components in the peripheral nervous system. The sensory receptors, which we have discussed earlier, these are specific cells or the specific tissues that are sensitive to a particular stimuli. Nerves. Right, before we discuss nerve, there is a slide about sensory receptors. That is, I have already explained. So these are the different examples of the sensory receptors. Go through these and think of the other sensory receptors present in the animal's body. These sensory receptors are always located in the skin, mostly, which has to deal with the external stimuli. So here you see there are receptors, different receptors for the heat or temperature, light, touch, pain, cold, hair, deep touch, strong pressures, hair movement, right? So there are all different types of the receptors present in the animal's skin, and that is present in the dermis. Then the nerves is the second part or second component of the peripheral nervous system, which is the bundle of the axons and dendrites. You must recall the structure of the neuron. So there are three parts. Basically, there are three components or parts of a neuron. The receptor part is called the dendrites, the smaller extensions from the cell body. The main cell body is the second part, and then an axon which takes the message from the cell body towards the end and transmits it to the dendrites of the another neuron or to the central nervous system. Right. So basically, the combination of the collection of the different dendrites and axons, and sometimes including the cell bodies, is called the nerves. Right? So nerves could be cranial nerves or spinal nerves. The cranial nerves are those that arrive straight from the hindbrain, and they are mostly confined within the skull region. And the other are the peripheral nerves that arise from the backbone or spinal cord, right? So they take that message from the spinal cord to the limbs or other parts of the body. So the nerves could be also classified into two groups based on their functions. Those which are responsive to take the message from the receptors towards the brain are called sensory nerves, and those which take it back from the brain to the effectors, or to the muscles or the other parts of the body which has to respond to that message, are called motor nerves. So here it comes. The cranial nerves originate from the medulla oblongata, that is the hindbrain, and 12 pairs of the cranial nerves are present in human. That is an example. Spinal nerves originate from the spinal cord, and in human there are 31 pairs of the spinal nerves. Okay, the third component, remember, in the peripheral nervous system is ganglion, and the fourth one is the plexus. A ganglion is a collection of the neuron cell bodies located outside the central nervous system. Right, so these are the cell bodies, collection of the different cell bodies that are present outside the brain are called ganglions, and whereas the plexus is an extensive network of the axon and in some cases also neuron cell bodies located outside the cell, they are called plexus. So basically you can say the nerve is the combination combination of ganglion and plexus, right?